Okay, so that was a little aside on Moore's law. I didn't want to run out of time on that. So, yeah.
I heard some people say that Moore's law is not true anymore. We can't really make as much transistors every.
Okay, so the comment is, some people have said that Moore's law and Santa Claus are not true. That's true. Well, I don't know about Santa Claus, but here's the thing with Moore's law. It's still true, meaning like Intel's prediction for what they're going to be releasing 2 or 3 years from now, it's really in the pipeline already, and they're building the factories already. It still holds with that. So Samueli, who founded Broadcom and knows about these things because they make chips too, thought it would continue through the mid-2020s, and then he was very dubious about it continuing on past that. But then there's always the possibility of completely new computing paradigms like biological computing or quantum computing. I don't know. I'm not a hardware engineer, so I don't know any more than any of you guys do. Okay, so the point of asking you to read the little thing on the drop-down or pop-out menus was as an example of something that has many different names, but is often called user interaction design or user experience design. It's a focus on the user interface. It's sometimes called UX, user and experience design. So if, like, you see a job posting that might say, we want a UX engineer or something like that. And it's kind of a broad term, meaning someone who's really focusing on how does this work for the user. Don't just think of it as a user interface, this static thing that just sits there and the user knows what to do. Really think about naive people and experts and what do they do and how they move their mouse and, and I think I tried to give you some example of that with that blog posting. And here's a quote from Hacker News. It's probably a great testament to its good design that I failed to notice how well it works when browsing Amazon. Everyone notices awful drop-down menus, and I really don't like bootstraps. Everyone know what Bootstrap is? You all downloaded Bootstrap. That's not Bootstrap. But good ones like this often pass unnoticed because they work so well. And of course, that's the great thing about all good design is if it's really something really well designed, you don't notice it or you say, oh yeah, of course. That's obvious. Of course it's that way. You look at an iPhone and you say, oh yeah, sure. That's what I would have done too. But it's not that easy. Okay, so I wanted to spend at least a little bit of time on another set of slides, which are interesting to me, and I hope hopefully to you, because they cover a lot of the same things that I've been covering in this course over the last 9.5 weeks, but from a completely different perspective. So let's see. And here's my link. Okay, so this is someone else's slides, so that's always sort of a weird thing for me to give someone else's slides because some things I don't know what they're talking about. But some things are you'll see why it's interesting. So user experience design and user testing. So what is user experience design? Why should we care? How can we apply UX processes? How can we measure its effectiveness? Who needs to be involved? See, I don't know how many times I have to press the key here. So what is it? So it's some or all of these. So you can see that there's a lot of things that probably to you are just words, but there are people who specialize in each one of these. And if you're kind of interested in this area of software creation, then go back to this and look up these terms and get more familiar with them. Information design, which is really at the it's not yet at the user visible, it's like the underlying information. Information architecture. We'll talk about all these. Interaction design, visual design, human factors, cognition, usability, accessibility. So for instance, there's a big component of software design that says accessibility. How easy is this to use for someone who's deaf, blind, not fully functional in some other way, maybe fingers or something like that, or maybe some cognitive impairment? And that's a large actor, or some old even, like maybe over 50. And that's a large segment of the population and certainly should not be ignored. So here's just some adjectives. For instance, we want things to be findable. Those of us with strong visual sense, and maybe we can find things just by quickly looking over screen, and we kind of know, well, if we click here, we're likely to go to where we want. Like how can I find my graduate school classmate from 20 years ago? But not everyone figures that out on their own. There's a lot of blankness. Okay, so let's pull that all together in one. So here's an interesting sort of perspective where at the base you have the user's needs and the site objectives. So he's definitely thinking website in this, but this doesn't just apply to webs. It could be any kind of application or something that runs on the computer, as a a game or something that's just on the computer and not part of the web. And then on top of that, or based on that, are the functional specifications, such as you wrote, and content requirements. And then on top of that is interface design, navigation design, information design. And then on top of that is the visual side of things. What colors you're using, where do you place things on the screen. Anyone read this book? So let me just say, this is one of the best books I've ever read. And I'm not a big comics fan. It is just so interesting. I so encourage you to go get a copy. Understanding comics. And you'll see a little bit of it. So, this guy just has interesting things to say about everything. So he says, the author of this book, Scott McCloud, says, all creative endeavors follow a path consisting of 6 steps. Idea, form, idiom, structure, craft, surface. What does this remind you of? Waterfall model. Oh, these slides on the web don't have some things missing. But thankfully, I went and photocopied it myself. So the first step is the idea, the impulses, idea, emotions, philosophies, purposes of the work's content. Now, he's thinking, art. In some aspect of software is art, but obviously a lot of it is very economically motivated. And so we could add to this, as software developers, we could add to this business needs, scientific needs, company, fulfill the needs of the company, things like that. The form it will take. Will it be a book, chalk drawing, chair, song, sculpture, potholder, comic book? Or once again, a more software-centric, we could say app, website, standalone, downloaded application that runs on the PC or the Mac. Something like that. The school of art, the vocabulary of styles or gestures or subject matter, the genre that the work belongs to. Maybe a genre of its own. What does that sound like? Right. Architectural style. Left, right to everyone's mind. 4th, putting it all together. What to include, what to leave out, how to arrange, how to compose the work. Okay, so now, as it just turns out, the website, that was 1 through 4 that I provided you. Okay, for some reason 5 and 6 are back on the website. 5th, constructing the work, applying skills, practical knowledge, invention, problem solving, getting the job done. So in software terms, this would be a lot of the design and all the implementation and testing probably. Production values, finishing, the surface characteristics. The aspects that are most apparent when someone first comes to something. You go to a website and you say, oh, nice color scheme, or it's laid out in a way that I understand, or something like that.